The collection itself didn't really start to come together until I think it was the early 20th century, when a group of women in the Washington area decided that the Smithsonian should have this collection. And the new exhibit we're going to be completing and opening in December will go into the history of the collection a little bit more, because people really always ask us, how did this collection come to the Smithsonian? Not only First Ladies, but many of the objects in our collection. So we're going to talk about that, but we do have something from every First Lady.
I know you had a problem with the Star-Spangled Banner decaying.
Yes.
Have you had any problems with the First Lady's dresses decaying?
Well, they're very fragile. Many of them were made just for one occasion, and to display these gowns, there's even displaying them puts a strain on the gowns. I mean, they were not meant to just be on display indefinitely.
But that sounds like the flag.
Right. Well, gravity alone is pulling at these textile objects, and so we try to rotate the display of the gowns, and they are very fragile, and they don't travel that well. And we did have a traveling exhibit of the First Lady's collection while we were closed, and it was phenomenally popular. But we had to only travel the dresses that could easily make a journey like that, and then be remounted and taken down, and there is a lot of wear and tear.
It would probably be a good idea, but in bad taste, to have the First Lady's gowns like the flag, like prone. You know?
I won't touch that.
You had to do that with the flag, didn't you?
Well, the flag is on display now on a table that's at a 10-degree angle.
Right.
So when you walk into the flag gallery, you have a very good view of the flag, because even at 10 degrees, the back end of the table is 6 feet off the ground. So you have a very close view of this amazing artifact of American history.
What's amazing to me is that any of us who grew up here, and I think the first time you went to the museum, you were like 8 or 9, and I was probably about that age too, is that the flag used to just hang right out there in the open with the pendulum swinging, but the flag was just, and that turned out to be not good for it at all.
No. Well, again, gravity was a problem, and the dirt from people just walking in and out of the museum, and there it was out in the open, and it took several years to, well, first there was a linen backing that had been sewn onto the flag in 1914, and that was the best technology at the time to preserve something like this large textile, which is 30 feet by 34 feet. But over time, the linen backing itself was pulling the flag apart, and so we had to remove the linen backing, and there were 1.7 million stitches to be removed by hand, turn the flag, roll it up, turn it over, and pull the stitches out, and then clean the flag. And so it was a very labor-intensive project. But now we have, I think, I don't know how many of you have had a chance to see the flag in the new gallery, but it is, I think, a very inspiring presentation of the flag. And what we also wanted was to present people with some of the historical context of why the Star-Spangled Banner is a national treasure. Because in the past, well, I think what we present is some information.
Do you think everybody knows the story?
Maybe not. I think that the fact that the War of 1812 is not a war that is taught that often or even that well in schools, and our country, and we were in the formative years of our history, and we were very close to losing that war when Washington was captured in the summer of 1814. The White House was burned. We have a charred piece of timber from the White House, from the burning of the White House, on display in the exhibit. If Baltimore had fallen, Baltimore was a critical port at that time, and in early September 1814, Baltimore was under siege by the British. And if Baltimore had fallen, the British could have split the country. At that point, the country was really located only on the East Coast. So what we try to present people is what a critical moment it was.
And where was the flag flying?
At Fort McHenry, outside Baltimore. And so when Francis Scott Key sees the flag on the morning of September 14th, 1814, and the fact that the Fort McHenry had been held by the Americans, he's inspired to write the poem that became the national anthem. And that took some years, and we explained that it didn't instantly become the national anthem.
Right, and the flag continued to fly. Nobody said, let's take it down. And
well, no, after the battle, the flag was retired. and was given to the family of the commander of the fort, Colonel Armistead. And Armistead gave the flag, and he also gave a ceremonial punch bowl that he was given by the citizens of Baltimore in gratitude for his leading the defense of Baltimore. And his family held on to the flag and the punch bowl for almost a century.
Just folded up?
Folded up. And occasionally they were encouraged, especially during and after the Civil War, to display the flag more frequently. And their way of preserving the flag was to actually give away souvenirs of pieces of it. So it was originally 30 feet by 42 feet.
It was a much...
So it's 8 feet shorter now.
Yeah.
And it was also had 15 stars.
It almost looks like a square now.
It's almost square, right. But now it has 14 stars. So if anyone here has the other star, we have no idea.
Anybody ever come to you with a piece that said, you know, this belonged to my great-grandfather?
Yes. Not the star, but we have occasionally have, and we do some forensic examination to see if it matches the...
but there's no point in stitching it all back to...
No. In fact, when we displayed the flag in Flag Hall of the museum, we did add 8 feet, and it was very noticeable.
Yeah.
And we decided when we started the conservation project not to restore the flag, but to just conserve what was original, even though it's very, very fragile and fragmentary. But
as you pointed out, the whole museum isn't open, and you've worked very hard on what you've done. And you had a mandate. In fact, you may well have to give us the timeline, but I have a report here that was the Blue Ribbon Commission on the National Museum of American History, and this was March of 2002.
Yes.
And this was quite a mandate because you weren't the director yet. You walked into this.
Right.
And this was a very, serious commission that assessed a museum that was pretty much on the ropes.
Yes.
And it said, among many other things, but in a nutshell, it said it lacks aesthetic appeal, organizational coherence, and the perception of substantive balance. And then it went on to cite many, and it says it definitely, it needs a new director.
Yes.
But you walked into a, kind of a minefield of problems. And
well, I think the museum has some great strengths, and even with all the problems which the Blue Ribbon Commission identified, and which in fact, when I read that report, I was convinced this is something I'd like to do.
Was that part of the job decision process?
Yes. Well, I thought this made a lot of sense to me. The recommendations
did
were.
Did they come after you, or did you come after the job?
Well, they had a search firm that went around the country, seeing who would be candidates. And
you wanted a challenge.
Yes. And I'd been in Pennsylvania for 15 years, directing a state history
Many
commission.
Museums were under your...
That's right.
Right.
But I think that the assets that the museum has of a fabulous collection, a very dedicated and amazing staff of curators and educators and just these specialists who are just amazing.
Is the staff the same size as when this was written? Or
it's a little smaller.
A little
smaller. We've been losing staff because of federal budget cuts annually.
Right.
And then we have this great location on the mall.
Yeah.
So even with the flaws of the museum, which were, I think, correctly pointed out in the Blue Ribbon Commission, we still had millions of people coming and enjoying the museum. So we had a lot of strengths and a good foundation. So I don't like to ever say that we were in the doldrums, but
it's okay.
But
even museums can hit a bad patch.
Well, I think we needed to make some serious changes, and I think the project that's just been completed shows the direction.
It was a unique situation.
Yes.
Didn't you?
And we had some opportunities. We had a number of donors who had stepped forward, individuals, Polo Ralph Lauren, for example, with the flag.
But that was for the flag. That was now, because one of the other things you walked into, and it may have been resolved by then, was a donor controversy with Catherine Reynolds.
Yes.
That's her name?
Yes.
That she had given $38 million to the museum, and then there was a protest that she had that the museum had agreed to too many of her demands to be involved.
Right.
Right.